Hello again, everybody, and welcome back to the Columbus School of Chinese here in Columbus, Ohio. My name is Donald Newman, and this is episode number 9 of Ask a Chinese Teacher. Today we're going to continue our exploration of the pinyin romanization system. Now we know from past episodes we have initials, finals, and tone marks. Here we have the initials. This should look familiar from previous episodes. We have our chart of finals, and we've talked about the simple finals on top. Today, we're going to be talking about the rules for when a U should be an U and when a U should be an U, depending on what finals or what initials you can use it with. But before we get into that, if you'd like to learn more about what we do here at the Columbus School of Chinese, in particular the classes available for you either in person in our office or online, you can check us out at columbuschoolofchinese.com or like us on Facebook for lots of other free resources for Mandarin learners. So, we know from last time we have U and U in Mandarin Chinese. This one is relatively easy for us coming from an English-speaking background. U, we kind of have this in English. We do not have U. As it turns out, some initials can take U and some others can take U. Here's how it breaks down. Our first line, our bilabials, bo, po, mo, fo, all fall under the U. So if there is a U after any of these initials, it's always going to be U, right? We have bu, pu, mu, fu, that all works. None of them work with U. You'll never see one of these initials with U. Our next line, tu, tu, nu, lu, are all good with U. These can all take U. It turns out only N and L from this line can take an U. So we have nu, lu, that works. Does not work with D or T. With our next line, ge, ke, he, all work with U, gu, ku, hu. None work here with U. They will never take U. Next line, ji, qi, xi. None of them work with U. If you try to say a ji with an U, it starts to sound like this one. It starts to sound like this one. Ju, chu, shu. None of them work here. All of them work here. Okay, this is a Q. Oh, right? Next line, kind of the opposite from the previous line. They all work here with U. None of them work here with U. If you try to pronounce this initial and connect it with this, it starts to sound like an U. At least that's what it does for me as someone with some experience with Mandarin. Next, last line, zu, su, su, all work with U. None of them work with U. So, as it turns out, many more of the initials from our chart here work with U, and just a few work with U. Now, before we go any farther, there's kind of a quasi-initial we haven't talked about yet. There's two, in fact. That's when we have a syllable, we have a word that just has a U without an initial consonant in front of it. That's always written as W-U. So it's kind of like a faux initial or a quasi-initial. Whenever we have a U written as an entire word, for example, the number 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, it'll be written W-U. What's the equivalent over here? Y-U. U. Oh, U. Fourth tone, for example, means jade. Okay? Now, at this point, you might be saying, hold on a sec, Li Lao Shi, I see all kinds of words with J and the U after it, and none of them have these two dots. 觉 from the word to think. 去 the verb to go. 学 the verb to study. None of them have the dots. What's the deal? Shouldn't I be trying to pronounce this initial with this vowel sliding into an E? The answer is no. We are still actually pronouncing this vowel. Why is that? They're trying to save you some time. So whenever there's a J, a Q, and an X, and afterwards we have a U, it can only be this one. It can never be this one. Therefore, in order to save you some time, the rule goes, you do not have to go back and put in the 2 dots. So make sure this is something that ends up being a convenience for you as opposed to something that is confusing. Whenever we say a J, Q, X, U, that includes a YU. It's always U, 觉, 去, 学. It can only be this. It cannot be this. Therefore, we don't have to write in the 2 dots. So, when do we need to use these 2 dots then? Well, that's only for initials that can go either way. Do we have any here that show up on both sides of the chart? That's right. N and L. So only in the case of N, U, and L, U, will we ever actually see these dots in normal pinyin writing. So 女, the word female, we have to see those dots. Otherwise we'd be saying 奴, 奴. It's a totally different word. If we wanted to say the word green, the color green, 绿, 绿, we need those 2 dots. Otherwise we're saying 路, 路, road. Nothing to do with each other. So only in this situation will you ever see the 2 dots. But believe me, they're here. They're just hidden for your convenience.